After the Empress teaches the Fool to nurture creation, the Fool then meets the Emperor, the force that brings order, discipline, and lasting foundations to their journey. Hey friends, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Elizabeth and I share deck flip-throughs, spreads, VRs, and so much more. Welcome back to the Fool's Journey. Today we are stepping into the energy of the Emperor. The Emperor embodies structure, leadership, and control. They are, in essence, the architect of stability, and they ensure that chaos doesn't rule. Let's take a look at the symbolism. All right. Today we are looking at the universal weight and tarot disassembled. I want to pull in the Empress quickly, just to kind of show how different these two cards are. Now, the Empress is in lush nature, but the Emperor sits on solid rock, and that is symbolizing strength, logic, unwavering discipline. Now, we can also see the emperor has on a robe, but beneath his robe is his armor. And we can see that here in the card as well. And there's hints of it here on his legs and feet. This is because even though the emperor is empowered, they are always ready for battle. This represents protection and preparedness. We'll often see the symbols of the Ankh and the orb. This shows the emperor's control over the material world, organization, ruling power. The Emperor card is also tied very closely to the Ram and to Aries. So we can see that here on the corners of the chair. Actually, there's four. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 being the number of stability and the number of the Emperor's card. But this energy is tied to Aries. That's the sign of determination, leadership, and assertive action. This is reinforcing fearless energy. And as you can probably tell with all of the red in these cards, the Emperor is also connected to Mars. Now, Mars represents fiery drive, action, protection, and strategic strength. And I want to emphasize there's a difference there. This is not reckless power, right? This energy is teaching decisive leadership, knowing when to strike and when to stand firm. The Emperor is teaching us that to create lasting success, we must structure, we must lead, we must take responsibility. The Emperor is a polarizing figure. And I understand that some people see this energy as a force, right? A force of leadership and structure, while others might feel resistance towards that rigid authority. There's a level of discomfort at times with this energy for a variety of different reasons, patriarchy, control systems, societal power structures. But what I want to mention is that many decks and many readers actually reinterpret the emperor's role, instead focusing on empowered leadership, healthy boundaries, inner strength, and mastery. Leadership does not have to be oppressive, right? It can be strong yet supportive. True authority is not about dominating, but creating structures that allow for growth. The emperor can symbolize personal discipline, autonomy, and owning one's path. When we take a look at the energy of this card and the lessons that it brings outside of these outdated power structures, then we can really see the true essence of the Emperor. This is a foundation builder who ensures stability. This energy appears in everyday life all the time. When you say no, when you take charge, when you establish clear rules, that is the Emperor. The Emperor thrives in strong leadership. When you take responsibility, right? Owning your actions, you're leading a team or making those tough calls. That's the Emperor energy because it values accountability. The Emperor energy is what helps us build something sustainable, planning your finances, structuring a business, or even creating a long term vision. The Emperor ensures that things are going to last. Another example might be standing firm in your challenges, right? Facing struggles with logic, strategy, and self discipline. The Emperor comes in and reminds us that order, leadership, and responsibility help to build success. Let's take a look at the fours in tarot. Now, the fours reflect stability, foundation, structure, which echoes the Emperor's energy. In the Four of Wands, we see a celebration, yes, but that is built upon strong foundations, security, and achievement. Otherwise, there would be no need to put four wands there in the front. It's to show us that this is balanced, it's structured, it's secure. The Four of Cups, emotional stability. But with the Four of Cups, we see that need to break the routine, to avoid stagnation. And then we have the Four of Swords, right? Mental recovery, resting to rebuild your strength, right? Strategic reflection. And in the Four of Pentacles, financial control, security, and caution. I think this card here demonstrates the importance of holding stability while avoiding rigidity. Each of the fours teaches that without structure, nothing thrives, but excessive control leads to stagnation. Different decks present the Emperor in unique ways, including female presenting emperors. Now, here we have the Emperor from Tarot of the Guiding Muse, and we can see that this helps to challenge traditional depictions of authority. Let's take a look at some other examples. Here we have the card from the Rosebud. It's been renamed to the Elder. Notice that here we see an older female, right? The Emperor beyond gender. It challenges a lot of the traditional depictions of the Emperor. And here, what we see is wisdom, experience, and leadership that is beyond patriarchal norms. And it's also reminding us that authority isn't tied to gender, it's tied to mastery, discipline, and the ability to create lasting stability. Here we have the Emperor from Tarot of Mystical Moments. And something that I really appreciate from this deck is that they gave options to have female cards in traditional masculine roles. So we have the option between the female emperor and the male emperor. I happen to be the person that really enjoys having a balance in my decks, and this was a deck that really surprised me because once I had it in my hands, I knew that I needed to use the female emperor and the female kings. While it's interesting here, we see the idea of the structure being balanced and secure, supported by the emperor. I think it's incredible what they've done in this card because this shows what that energy could look like when it's overboard, right? When it's in reverse. Here we see the emperor completely overshadowing. The people appear to be tied on strings, limiting the ways in which they can move and the actions that they can take. And I think that that's an interesting part of the Emperor card, and probably the reason why people feel a certain kind of way about the Emperor energy. Here we have the Emperor as Aries. This is the Warrior Emperor. Aries is the Greek god of war and represents raw power, aggression, battle energy. That's very different from his Roman counterpart, Mars, who represents strategic warfare. Aries is pure combat, instinct, and force. When I look at this card, I see an untamed, action driven leader, someone who thrives in conflict, in competition, in asserting dominance. This emperor here feels more warrior like than ruler like. And I feel like this card here emphasizes strength through conquest rather than stability. Let's look at the card from the Simdala. This card has the keyword dominion. This is the emperor as absolute authority. This interpretation focuses more on control, mastery, ruling power. And there's a difference there, right? Because dominion suggests commanding leadership, but the emperor is actually the architect of order, setting the laws, enforcing the discipline, ensuring structure. When we look at these cards, it might prompt us to ask questions. Where do I need to take control? Where is structure lacking? As with the Empress, here we have the idea of father and grandfather. So here we have Tarot of Light and the Vision Quest. This shows the Emperor as a protector and a guide. Instead of someone that is enforcing the laws, this depiction shows a wise elder, someone who's offering guidance, protection, maybe generational wisdom. Here we see the representation of tradition, stability, and the passing down of knowledge. So that helps to soften the rigid energy that is often associated with the emperor, right? Because it shows him as a mentor rather than a commander. And maybe here you might ask yourself, how can leadership be nurturing? How do past generations shape our foundations? Now we're going to look at the Forest of Enchantment. This shows, I don't know, kind of similar to like Green Man. We see the card has been renamed the Forest Lord, the Emperor as nature's guardian. When we look at this card, this is a complete shift away from man made power structures, right? Instead, here we see the Emperor energy embracing natural leadership, harmony with the land, ensuring balance rather than control, right? Here we see a representation of the wisdom of cycles, the strength of nature, and leadership that protects rather than dominates. So we might ask ourselves, how can leadership be sustainable? How do we create structure that supports growth rather than restrict it? I did pull a few extra cards because this is my particular card, astrologically, the Emperor. And I just enjoy getting to know this energy and understanding it better. So here we have the Emperor from the lovely Om. And I really like the difference in the way that it's presented here. Overlooking an energy that is perhaps feeding. I see the energy radiating from the eyes, from the crown, filling the land. Unlike any of my other emperors, I feel like this card, the eyes, there's something about the eyes. There's this loving energy in them that helps us see another side of the emperor. This is the Emperor from the Gaian Tarot. I am sharing this Emperor. It is my least favorite Emperor. But I do love the Builder. That reminder that the Emperor is the architect. The Emperor is always working on building a solid foundation. This is the Emperor from the Earth Woman Tarot. I appreciate the age here. There's wisdom there. I appreciate that instead of on a stone throne, he is seated on a mound of earth and yet very much connected to that Mars energy without letting it overpower, consume him. Here we have naturescapes and tarot landscape. Different views all together. You definitely get the rigidity of this image here through that mountain, which obviously we see represented in the back here, uh, back of the Emperor card. But I love this depiction as well. Looking at these office buildings, reminds you of structure, of the importance of foundation. You can imagine all of the strategy and logic that is taking place within these offices. It's a powerful image. What I would consider some of my fun emperors. Here we have Nightmare Before Christmas, Santa as the emperor. This for me is the ultimate symbol of empowered leadership, healthy boundaries. Yes, there's rules, there's do's, there's don'ts, but there's a loving energy there as well. This is the Emperor from my Cirque Tarot, and I get such a kick out of this card because we can see the Fool all the way down here. And it's like the Fool is mimicking the Emperor. And I don't know about you, when you were growing up, if you had a father or father figure present in your life and they're trying to teach you something, if you even dare to fool around like this behind their back, it's going down. So I just love this card because it shows, it has to be something for, the Fool. Let me get him here. Here's the Fool. And the Fool is so like, la la la. I have this grand vision and I'm just so excited and I feel inspired and I'm just going to go for it. And imagine what it must have been like for the fool to meet the emperor. And this emperor here, I don't know if you can see, like there's a little bit of a side eye going. There's a little bit of a side eye going. So this card here, the fact that the fool is shown here mimicking the emperor just really helps me connect to a lot of different things, but primarily to my inner child and what it must be like for the fool to meet this energy and be like, whoa, what's going on here? What's with all the rules? Can't we all just get along? This is the last card I'm going to show you. This is the Emperor from the Pastel Kitty Tarot. This is a very special deck for me. This is my inner child deck. And recently I had been doing some inner child work and I had what I would consider to be a major breakthrough. And it was thanks to this card right here, because it helps me to see the Emperor energy in a completely different way. And I wanted to take a moment to pull out my journal. So here we can see I had made the conscious decision that I was transforming domination, inflexibility, and oppression into healthy boundaries and structure. That was my wisdom. That was what I learned from this card. This is why I don't shy away from playful decks, because they bring truth in the way that sometimes we just need to hear it that way. We just need to see it that way. I love this representation because we see a more playful side. We see these building blocks. Yes, they're representing the four elements, and that speaks to structure, to stability, to balance, right? But also, when I think of building blocks, I think of a foundation. And what happens when you try to build something on a weak foundation? It's going to fall apart, right? The foundation is what's important. That's the magic of this Four of Wands card. The foundation is important. So I really love this particular representation of the Emperor card. I would like to dedicate this episode to the Emperor in my life. I wouldn't be the person that I am today without him. Friends, if you love tarot and are interested in learning more about the archetypes, please be sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. And if you know someone who might benefit from the series, feel free to share. That's a wonderful way to help smaller channels like mine get their voices heard throughout YouTube. How about if we get to know this energy a little bit better? Let's do a spread on the Emperor energy. I pulled out the Emperor card. This is going to be our anchor card, so to speak. And we are going to pull 3 cards today. So let's start with the first one. Where do I need more structure and stability? Where do I need more structure and stability? Ooh, 5 of Cups. All right. So, more structure and stability. 5 of Cups. All right. Card number 2. How can I step into leadership more effectively? How can I step into leadership more effectively? Ooh, that's nice. Queen of Pentacles. Okay. And card number 3. What is ready to be built for long-term success? Whoa. 8. We have the 8 of Swords. All right, so let me shimmy these over just a bit. Let's start with the first card here. This was, where do I need more structure and stability? We've gotten the 5 of Cups, right? This is speaking to emotions and specifically unbalanced emotions, right? Fives are typically a number of conflict, a struggle, a challenge of some sort, and it's in the emotional space. When we ask ourselves, what foundation do we have that needs reinforcement? Maybe it's our emotional intelligence, right? Maybe it's finding a better way to sit with our emotions, to deal with our emotions, and to not let them consume us. And here for card number 2, we have the Queen of Pentacles. I mean, how fabulous is that? How can I step into leadership more effectively? Well, the Queen is in a position of leadership herself. This is a very grounded energy. This Queen is loving and kind, nurturing, balanced. And there's always a sense of abundance when I look at this Queen energy. So what strength is waiting to be claimed? This is telling me that by stepping into this Queen of Pentacles energy, that grounding, that sense of grounding that we get would help us find our balance. And then we have over here card number 3. What is ready to be built for long-term success? Long-term success. I think of my vision, right? My vision for the future. What is that? Well, it's hard to see if we're blindfolded. It's hard to know which way to go or which way to move if we're bound or restricted, right? This is a card of mental capacity. And there's a sense of restriction here. There's that sense of limiting beliefs holding us back, old ideas that are not letting us progress to the future, what's ready to be built for long-term success. Perhaps that's our sense of worth. Perhaps that's stepping into our power. Perhaps that's having healthier boundaries. Right? When we think about this Emperor energy and what that means, it's about having structure, having stability, being able to say no so that you can say yes to yourself. The Emperor wants to teach us discipline and control, but that's for us to be able to take more of a leadership role in our own life. So we're not held back. You know, notice how this Queen is flanked between the 5 of Cups and the 8 of Swords. That's telling. That's telling. Our thoughts and our emotions are getting away from us, and they're not letting us step into our power the way that we should in order to do something, take those next steps, whatever that might be for you. The Emperor wants you to be empowered. This is the card that shows that there's a lack of empowerment. With this Emperor comes a sense of inner strength, of self-mastery, right? This could be self-discipline, owning your path. But when I look at this figure here, she is not owning her path. She's kind of stuck. She's stuck in her path, as is she. So when we look at what needs a little bit more structure and stability, our emotional landscape. Well, how can we get there? How can we step into that with this Queen of Pentacles energy? Same over here. What's ready to be built for long-term success? Well, seems to me like first we have to get a handle of our emotions, of our thoughts. Those are the two things that are primarily holding us back from this middle card here, stepping into leadership. There's a strength waiting to be claimed. The Emperor is telling us there's a strength within you. You just have to grab it. In this case here, the Emperor has a gift for you. There's a wisdom here. The Emperor wants you to create structure, right? To support healing. Because that's another element here with this Five of Cups. There's some healing that needs to take place. The Emperor wants us to embrace leadership, right? This Queen of Pentacles is resourceful. She is caring. She will know exactly what you need to help you ground and center and heal. And the Emperor wants us to use logic and strategy as opposed to these limiting beliefs here. All this other mental chatter that's going on in our brains. No, the Emperor wants us to be logical, to be strategic, so that we can free ourselves from restrictive thinking. Beautiful reading today. I hope that you found something within it that can help you. Of course, I will leave the questions in the description box below in case you would like to do this spread for yourself. The Emperor is reminding us that strength isn't just about control. It's about knowing when to take action and when to stand firm. And the Emperor teaches that true leadership isn't rigid, it adapts while maintaining stability. Next week, we are going to meet the Hierophant. The Hierophant brings tradition, wisdom, and spiritual guidance into the Fool's journey. So please be sure to subscribe, follow along as we unlock the major arcana. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.